Good day. This is episode 1 of Beyond the Fog podcast. Today we would be looking at Trendhunter 2025 report and see if there is anything of value that we can extract. First, let me ground us all in the same context about the methods. Trendhunter is based on categorizing the world into high-level patterns which then trickle down to megatrends, trends, individual insights. A key tool for them is a megatrend wheel. They have chosen 6 patterns at the highest level. First one is acceleration, which captures improving or perfecting something. Reduction is about efficiency first and foremost. Convergence talks about combining, aligning, hybridization. Cyclicality covers generational, seasonal trends, retro, nostalgia, and those sorts of things. Redirection represents refocusing, gamifying. And lastly, divergence, which could be explained as personalization and customization. These 6 patterns never change, and as I explained, they trickle down to specific megatrends, trends, insights, and ideas for a specific period they are looking at. Due to the focus of the podcast, I would only look at technology, marketing, and retail for this specific episode. The tech section of this report is heavily focused on artificial intelligence, AI, and we are mostly talking about generative AI here. There are a couple of hardware-related items on the list. The first megatrend or trend is that laptop brands are designing devices for professional AI-based workloads. Prime examples would be Apple M chips, notebooks with the Snapdragon processors, or Surface 10 by Microsoft. At the same time, companies are creating compact hardware with AI designed to be worn daily. We could say that these small wearable AI assistants that you can just attach to your clothes, put them into your pocket and take it wherever you need to go. As an example, the report mentions Rabbit R1 or Humane AI Pin. There are some other devices, but they were not the focus of the report. The last one in the group are companies that implement AI into home appliances, such as laundry machines or security cameras. So, what's going on here? My personal opinion is that we would see the divergence of personal AI and public AI, so to say, and these trends support this view. Let me explain a little bit. There was a point where computers were huge machines taking up entire rooms. By second half of 1970s, the situation has changed though. The computers diverged into personal computers and supercomputers. Personal computers had one main user, and at the same time, supercomputers had many users, often entire institutions. By the same logic, I'm convinced that at some point AIs would also diverge into personal AIs with only one main user and public AIs, such as ChatGPT, that have millions of users. Personal AIs are unlikely to be as capable as public AIs, but they would have your complete context, which is extremely important. For example, you cannot ask ChatGPT what you have agreed with your supplier during the meeting, but ChatGPT just doesn't have a clue what you're talking about. Personal AI, though, would have no issues answering that question, replying what was agreed, what was done, what is pending. In other words, it's competition, sort of, between one AI for millions of users versus millions of AIs for a single user. I assume these personal AIs would be local for privacy reasons, and we already see some of them with the appearance of open source local models, such as Llama, for example. But there are many others. We can quite literally run a simple model on your personal computer right now, but it's still very far from the outcome that I predict. Trendhunter noted a trend for wearable assistants. The existence of this trend supports my forecast. Unfortunately, these devices fail to deliver spectacularly. And to be honest, it couldn't end in any other way. At the existing level of technology, these devices simply do not have sufficiently large memory and processors to work with proper AI models. They can only serve realistically as interfaces with smartphones or computers doing actual work. This is doable, but is it necessary? Maybe, but personally I'm not convinced. Using public AIs like ChatGPT via Wi-Fi connectivity or SIM cards or some other sorts of connectivity is also a possibility, but one that completely destroys any notions of confidentiality. And this is crucial for their value proposition. There are two approaches that make at least some sense as far as I'm concerned. First, stay away from these devices altogether, because the only reason you might invest in those if you make a conscious decision to lose money. These devices has no chance to deliver, not in the next few years, but early adopters and investments are necessary for it to develop, so you could choose that route. The second option is investing in AI models miniaturization, making these models smaller while retaining their core functionality. I mean, wearable devices have weak hardware almost by definition. So one can make it work either by improving the hardware or creating a software that doesn't require that much resources. Significantly improving hardware would require hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Improving software would also be costly, but potentially feasible. AI and it couldn't be used. These improved AI models could be used not only by these wearable devices, but also by computers and even for improving large models for public AIs. So there is a spillover effect which could be used if you go into that direction. Overall, I see AI wearables as of now as a distraction, and while I agree with the report that there is an interest in the topic, my judgment is that for the most part it's not worth it. Personal AIs for smartphones and computers are a different animal though. These devices have significant resources and have the potential to properly utilize AI locally. This is where the other trend I mentioned comes in. Computer manufacturers invest a lot of effort and money into developing so-called NPUs, or neural processing units. Think of those as a part of processors focused specifically on AI workloads. In fact, although the report does not mention it, the same is true for smartphones. It enables more and more consumers and businesses to run their own AIs without the risk of leaking their data. If that is one of the concerns that prevented you from using AI, you can think again. It's possible that this barrier is crumbling right now as we speak. Whether or not you need AI and what AI and to what end is a different question though. I will talk about it more later. The last trend I wanted to mention here is AI implementation into home appliances and the trend of smart homes themselves. The trend is real. I agree with the report in that regard. For a long time, though, consumers were worried that using these devices would leave them vulnerable for outside interference, be it criminal activity or manufacturers themselves. Now there are reasons for this worry to subside. Be it smart devices or AI-enabled devices, it becomes easier and easier to make a completely local setup. And as we discussed previously, it is completely feasible to provide hardware required to run these AIs. It is still not something that most manufacturers would offer you by default, and it may require some work to set up, but it's possible. My personal opinion, though, is that this is the direction where we are moving. And probably some companies would capitalize on that. With one side note, it would become increasingly important where these devices were produced. A word of caution, though. Although the report has identified multiple appliances modified to incorporate AI, in most cases, it simply makes no sense. For example, Samsung put an AI into washing machine. This is either a gimmick or a toy. There is zero reasons to do that. I don't see any value in these kinds of products, and frankly, I do not take them seriously. Personally, I would consider it as an advertising tactic that uses AI hype against the consumer. However, there are legitimate uses for AI. Such an example include local security cameras identifying unauthorized people entering premises, or AI that observes your infant to let you know that he's crying, moving outside permitted perimeter, and those sorts of things. This could be quite useful in actual life. You might get an impression that everything is moving in the same direction hardware-wise. That is not at all the case. Trendhunter also noted revival of dumb phones and resurgence of minimalist technologies, let's put it this way, such as ink phones, movement in support of upgradable tech. We are now used for a piece of technology to not being upgradable anymore. At best, you can replace the battery, but even that is not possible, for example, in new iPhones or notebooks. Customer sentiment is universally against that. The right to repair movement, for example, in the United States is getting significant traction, with various states enacting laws that compel electronics manufacturers to provide consumers and independent repair shops, repair centers, access to essential information and replacement parts. As of now, 5 states, California, Minnesota, New York, Oregon, and Colorado, have enacted right to repair laws. These laws generally require manufacturers to make available parts, tools, and documentation necessary for repairing consumer electronics. Colorado's law is signed in May 2024 and is set to take effect in 2026, while Oregon's law is already in effect as of March 2024. The right to repair movement gains traction not only in the United States, but also in Europe, where similar legislative efforts are underway. The EU has begun implementing regulations aimed at improving product repairability standards. Over 30 states are currently considering right to repair as of 2024, including broader push for consumer rights regarding electronics repair. This trend suggests that more comprehensive and cohesive legislation may emerge in the coming years. As of October 2022, the Singaporean government has also acknowledged the right to repair as an issue. The Minister for Trade and Industry indicated that while the government is monitoring global discussions, it has not yet committed to any specific legislation. But I assume it would be coming in the next couple of years. This is also true for China, Australia, and some other countries. Japan and South Korea, for example, have shown interest in promoting sustainability practices, which may include aspects of the right to repair. Japan has strong culture of repair and reuse, but formal legislation is also not yet prominent. South Korea has seen movement towards consumer rights, but also lacks specific right to repair laws as of now. My advice would be to implement such practices as a way of getting brand loyalty, unless that would ruin your business model. In that case, it makes sense to review the model and prepare. I believe the change would come anyway. So for businesses, it's best to prepare first, or even voluntarily implement it. Personally, as a consumer, I'm all for this policy and it makes total sense to me conceptually. As for the dumb phones revival and minimalist trend in general, well, this is partially led by nostalgia and the typical 20 years cycle in fashion. It is even more prominent for flip phones, for example. But it's not the only reason. Another reason is fatigue. People are tired of notifications all the time, of all the distractions, and dumb phones is an effective way to curb that. Many people would still have smartphones, but buy dumb phones as a secondary phone, or maybe vice versa, buying dumb phone as primary phone, but having smartphone somewhere else. We haven't seen it yet, but I think simpler technology would gain additional traction after recent pager attacks in Lebanon. To remind everyone, on September 17 and 18, 2024, thousands of handheld pagers and walkie-talkies detonated almost simultaneously across various locations in Lebanon and Syria, primarily targeting Hezbollah members. Approximately 3,500 people were injured, with many suffering severe injuries, such as facial trauma or amputations. There were 42 confirmed fatalities, including at least 12 civilians. I wrote a short article on this specific issue and its implications some time ago. You can read it in full either on my website or LinkedIn. Here I would mention only some main points that are relevant to our today's topic. The most notable aspect of these attacks is that bombs were mass-produced and activated indiscriminately. Making a bomb as something else is not new for intelligence services. However, the assumption always was that these are singular devices targeted at specific individuals and would not be activated in a setting with the civilians around. Well, this assumption no longer stands and can no longer be relied on. The devices were and maybe still are in general use supply chain. So we can conclude that technology is no longer neutral. And of course, it is a vector of attacks that all terrorist groups in the world would now consider. But what is arguably worse is that all state actors would also consider it. It is something that is now allowed to happen. There was no meaningful condemnation of the event. We now have to assume that unless the device, smartphone, notebook, electronic vehicle, and anything else with the battery really, is produced in our country within a controlled supply chain, it might blow up in a case of interstate conflict or a terrorist attack. It has far-reaching effects, consequences, such as insurance premiums growing for electronics manufacturers and distributors, or let's say airlines starting to ban any electronics on board or in baggage, but also localization of production and search for safer devices, let's say, even if they have inferior designs. This is actually a severe blow to the globalization and free flow of goods. People would have to think where their electronic devices was produced and by whom. Obviously, there would be a tendency, at least for some consumers, to buy the device from the same country or region, even if it's a bit simpler. These devices could include dumb phones, for example. They are easy to inspect, well, relatively, but still. Combined with the right to repair movement, it would be easier to replace batteries, the element with the highest potential for being used as explosive. For those batteries that are produced locally. Now let's talk a little bit about software part of the technology. One of the trends observed by the report is so-called AI management. And by that, Trendhunter means refer to using automation and AI to improve customer engagement, provide quick and accurate responses to customer inquiries, and there is one more thing that we have not heard much about yet. It's AI managers. As an example, we could look at Honda appointing AI as a CEO and achieving profitability in 1 week. Honda's founder, maybe I'm sorry if I pronounced the name incorrectly, but it's Joao Santos, appointed ChatGPT as the CEO while he assumed a subordinate role, dedicating only an hour each day to execute tasks assigned by the AI. This unique arrangement, in many ways, allowed ChatGPT to take charge of critical decisions, including hiring, strategic planning, and day-to-day operations. The startup focused on selling t-shirts featuring designs generated by another AI tool called Midjourney. ChatGPT developed a business plan that included launching an online store and collaborating with Printful for production and fulfillment. To kickstart operations, Santos raised $2,500 from angel investors in exchange for 25% stake of the company. Within 5 days from launch, Aesthetic Apparel is what their brand is called, generated over 10,000 euros in revenue, with the costs amounting roughly to 4,000 euros. resulting in a profit of 6,000 euros. 5 days. If sales trends continued, ChatGPT projected an annual profit of 40,000 euros and the company valuation of 4 million euros. The report says, the report does not mention actually this fact, but it's not the first case. In August 2022, the Chinese company called NetDragon Websoft appointed Tang Yu, an AI-powered humanoid robot, as its CEO. Since the appointment, the company's stock has increased by approximately 10%, outperforming Hong Kong Hang Seng Index. This growth has helped elevate the company's valuation to over $1 billion. So it's not at all a small company. And the leadership of Tang Yu focuses on supporting decision-making for daily operations and is part of a broader strategy to transition into metaverse-based working community. The founder emphasized that this move represents commitment to leveraging AI for transformative business operations. In June 2022, Dictator Holdings, a Polish spirits company, introduced Mika as its CEO. Mika was developed by Anthropic, the same company that is responsible for Claude AI, and is designed to oversee operations while generating creative ideas and identifying business opportunities. While specific financial outcomes following Mika's appointment have not been detailed, the company aims to enhance its focus on environmental sustainability and social responsibility through her leadership. Mika's design emphasizes avoiding biases, maintaining rational decision-making, which could potentially lead to improved efficiency and reduce uncertainty in business operations. Or so they say. However, concerns about ethical implications and accountability with these sorts of AI leadership remain significant. And well, that's not surprising at all. So, what are the implications of this? Should we all hire AIs as CEOs or at least managers? Would we have AI board members? Well, in short, no. At least that's my opinion. And even if we do end up having some of them in the nearest future, it would not be in the way that these examples suggest. Instead, we should be looking at AI as a powerful tool to augment human decision-making and not replace it entirely. I do think that these AI management examples are intriguing, but they are far from being one-size-fits-all solution. The cases of Onda, NetDragon Websoft, or Dictator Holding are more like an elaborate experiments than a proven business model. First, I would acknowledge the advantages of AI systems in management. The idea of an AI CEO is appealing indeed, because the AI can process large, vast amounts of data, make quick decisions, and work 24/7 without fatigue. It doesn't have emotional biases, well, provided it was trained properly, and it can potentially reduce costs quite significantly. Sounds great, right? But there is always but. Um, First of all, many companies do not have an awareness of proper risk management and compliance involved in these systems. There is a great deal of information on that authored by Alexander Tulkanov on LinkedIn. Tulk Tulkanov. I would add the link in the description. I encourage everyone to go and take a look. There is additional compliance involved, not only when we are talking about AI, but also management. For example, does it act in good faith? Does it even understand the concept itself? You can upload the law, cases, best practices, and AI would try to follow it to the best of its abilities. But this is also where excessive techno-optimism is harmful. Generative AIs could be characterized in the following way. It is like an advanced autocorrect. But instead of taking incorrect word as an input and predicting what the correct word was and producing that as an output, they take long prompts, entire stacks of documents, and predict paragraphs of text, graphics, and things of that nature as an output. Two things follow from that. First, there is no understanding or judgment involved at all. This is just a statistical prediction. Well, it's slightly more complicated than that, but you can look at it that way. And second, generative AIs are great remixers of their data sets and inputs, but they do not produce genuinely new data. What does that mean for you? First, it doesn't understand what good faith means. It only follows examples. Whether or not it would be able to make a right call if a new situation emerges that has no relation to what was in the training already, the outcome is unknown. Although, to be honest, that is true of humans as well. Second, I have to note that it affects other decisions as well. It can help you making generalizations from an amount of data you would never be able to read, let alone think through. If you want to discover something like median, an average, then yeah, sure, lean aggressively into AI. Nothing wrong with that. For example, use AI if you want to determine average consumer sentiment. If you are, however, if you are looking for a median or an average that is unknown or hidden in vast amount of data, AI is your ticket. And that you would be in those situations plenty of time. So being AI denier is not really an option. But if you want to create a differentiation, something that is above average, something that is not that the same as everyone else, AI can't really help you. And those are all the things that you would need for business strategy, for example. Well, that said, there are plenty of times where you don't want to be the same as average of everyone else. So in those cases, you should not rely on AI too much. Third, AI may overlook qualitative factors crucial for business success, focusing solely on quantifiable metrics. Data worship, as Roger Martin calls it, and he's one of the best writers on this strategy, acts as a detriment of creativity and adaptability of your company. It starts with a simple data entry mistakes. For example, it's a well-known case where Samsung Securities experienced a catastrophic error when an employee mistakenly issued shares worth of $105 billion due to a simple data entry mistake. But clean data does not really resolve the issue. So I urge people to remember that ChatGPT struggles even with the arithmetics and formal logic tasks even now. But here is another example. Data suggested that girls were less likely to be interested in Lego bricks, leading many managers of the company to conclude that targeting them was futile. However, CEO at that time, Jürgen Knudstrop, challenged this assumption and launched a very successful Lego Friends line. AIs are incapable of such decisions by design. I will give you another example. Nokia relied heavily on market data and failed to recognize the qualitative shifts in the consumer preference towards touchscreens and app ecosystems. This single oversight led to its decline in the market share as competitors such as Apple and Samsung were capitalizing on these emerging trends. Kodak, and once a leader in photography, was slow to embrace digital technology despite having developed it internally. It was their technology. The company management focused on existing data about film sales rather than recognizing the qualitative shift towards digital photography. This reliance on historical data ultimately contributed to its bankruptcy. On the contrary, Zara exemplifies a successful integration of intuition, understanding, and data. The company uses real-time sales data to inform its inventory decisions, but also relies heavily on the intuition of store managers who understand local consumer preferences and their changes. This combination allows Zara to respond quickly to fashion trends while maintaining a strong connection with its customer base. This is also what Henry Mintzberg, another great writer on strategy business, means when he argues that an overemphasis on formal data can create a disconnect between managers and the complexities of the real-world organization dynamics. Clayton Christensen, who authored his famous work on disruptive innovation, also suggested that reliance solely on data, on existing data, can blind organizations to potential disruptions in their industries. He emphasizes the need for leaders to engage with emerging trends and customer needs beyond what current existing metrics indicate. Then there is one more point, maybe the most important one. CEOs, board members, managers lead people. Empathy, ability to listen to your subordinates, to inspire them. All of these are essential for any leader. And that is something that AI can imitate to some degree, but cannot actually do, and probably would never be able to do. Actual leadership, as far as I'm concerned, cannot be automated. Okay, so what do we do then? Should we not implement AI? Well, as I said previously, AI is a good for searching averages and parsing large amounts of data in natural language. That is incredibly useful, and it would not be a good idea to just miss this ability of this system. But it should be used as a tool to improve the capabilities of management and other employees, not to replace them. To bring your attention to issues it found, but not to resolve them. Resolving that is your task as a manager or CEO. And the question then becomes, how do we do that properly? It's a topic large enough for an episode of its own, so I would only make some remarks on that. First, you need to understand what exactly are you delegating to the AI. For risk and compliance, I would again recommend looking through Alexander Tulkanov articles. But you should also remember that you are not recreating the business process you are trying to automate in a digital format. You are creating a new one, although with the same end goal. So you need to understand what should be discarded, what should be created that maybe didn't exist in the business process that you have right now, and what business processes should not be automated at all, not at the current level of technology at least. HR systems, for one, are notoriously bad in terms of automation, and most unsupported by actual science or experience. You can basically use tarot or horoscopes with the same level of results. Chatbots are also known as a hurdle for the consumer to jump over to get to a human who would actually be able to resolve, to understand, first of all, and to resolve the request. So you should be very careful in how the processes you're automating would look like. Once you understand where and how you would like to add AI capabilities for your employees to use, there is another decision you need to make. Do you need a provider, or do you develop it internally? Roger Martin once noted that in modern tech, especially in software and internet services, the cost of producing and selling an incremental unit is zero or close to it. These are businesses that are dominated by fixed costs. The company spends enormous amount of money and resources on creating the first unit, working software, and subsequent variable costs are minuscule. This means that scale is an imperative. The greater the scale, the more broadly fixed costs are spread, and the lower the overall cost position of the company's offering. Apple iPhone provides an excellent example of that. Apple lost market share leadership to Samsung and operating system competition to Android. At first glance, they should have been able to crush Apple. But the issue is that fixed costs are both incurred and spread across dollars, revenue dollars, not unit sales. And despite having only 20% unit share at most, iPhone has 50% revenue share, as much as everyone else combined, and 3 times next best, Samsung. This is all the companies producing the other 80% of the units getting to share only 50% of the profits. How so? Roger Martin again argues that the key is the degree to which the use case is horizontal or vertical. At the extreme horizontal end of the spectrum is the use case that is common to all customers, whether in B2B or individuals in B2C. Well, one example is Microsoft Excel, for example. There is a use case for it in any company, and even many individuals use it. Not so far to the near of the spectrum is SAP for all medium and large size companies. At the extreme vertical end of the spectrum is a use case that is unique to a single company. For example, a piece of customized software written for a company's unique use. So it follows that there would be two kinds of successful investments in AI stack, including infrastructure, models, and applications. One kind will be an investment in an element of the stack that is more horizontal. To be successful, that investment must aim to be the biggest player in the element with the biggest R&D budget and the broadest distribution across users. The other kind of investment that will be successful is aimed at creating something uniquely customized to you that helps your core business outperform your competitors. The investments in between would fail. Moderately high investments with moderately broad distribution will get killed by very high investments with extremely broad distribution and from one side, and by narrowly targeted investment with no intent to distribute from the other hand. Personally, I concur with this assessment and find it extremely apt, which is also why I quote it in such detail. Assess if what you are contemplating investing in is largely horizontal or vertical. Do lots of companies need utility or tool in question? If the answer is yes, do not attempt to build it yourself. Even if you think that you can do that. Make the same choice as Procter & Gamble did in mid-1980s by being one of the first large American companies to implement SAP ERP system. Procter & Gamble was easily big enough and sophisticated enough to build their own ERP. But it was a horizontal element, so horizontal that now SAP is advertised as being installed in 99 of the top 100 companies worldwide. When it is substantially horizontal, get help outside. The only exception may be, although you would have to kind of approach to it very consciously, is the tool that would be horizontal, but it doesn't exist yet. Then you might consider creating it for yourself, but selling it to another to entire market. Make it your offering, not an internal tool. So, what if you are contemplating investing in something that is largely vertical? If you have unique database, build it in a way that suits you and your distinctive use of this database. If you need to ask your AI very specific questions in a very specific way to get the unique outputs you need, you can invest in working on that yourself. However, just be mindful that even vertical aspects can have horizontal elements. Your data may be unique, but if the kind of database that you need to organize it is similar to that of many other companies, a horizontal provider will figure out how to provide that service cheaper and better than you could do it yourself. That is actually maybe the number one reason why you need AI expertise in your company. It's not to build AI things, but to figure out who you need to build those AI elements for you and how to manage those providers. And if you aren't good at it, you will get both ripped and left behind. But if you are good at it, you will be able to get most out of AI without breaking the bank. But okay, enough about that. Let's now have a look at the marketing section of the report. Now, the report mentions AI mockups, AI stylists, and various tools designed to show customers how product might look on them or in their homes. While these are certainly gaining traction, I don't find them particularly groundbreaking or worthy of an in-depth analysis. They're just natural progression of an existing technologies. What's more interesting in this concept, what's more interesting is the concept of sustainable de-influencing that has been making waves, particularly on TikTok. The idea is that users are pushing back against constant barrage of product recommendations, encouraging others to think critically about their purchases and resist impulsive buying. Now, the report frames that as primarily driven by sustainability concerns. They argue that on one side, customers are bombarded with ads pushing them to buy. On the other hand, there is a growing awareness that endless consumption is wreaking havoc on our environment, things of that nature. It's a nice narrative, but I think it misses some crucial points. Don't get me wrong, sustainability is definitely one of the reasons for this trend. And we've seen brands like Patagonia lean into this with their "Don't buy this jacket" campaign, and companies like Everlane building their entire brand around transparency and ethical manufacturing. But there is more to this story. What the report seems to overlook is the role of consumer fatigue and the harsh reality of decreasing spendable incomes. Well, I won't go into spendable incomes part. You all understand what I'm talking about, and focus more on customers' fatigue. People are tired of being marketed to 24/7, tired of the constant pressure to keep up with trends, tired of endless cycle of buy, consume, discard, repeat. And oh yeah, but with the inflation biting and living costs soaring, many people simply cannot afford to keep up with the influencer lifestyle anymore. It's not about wanting to be sustainable as much. For many, it's about needing to be frugal. The influencing trend isn't just some noble crusade for the environment, it's also a reflection of economic realities and changing consumer attitudes. People are becoming more discerning, more critical, and frankly more skeptical of what they are being sold. Now brands are scrambling to catch up, obviously. We are seeing the influencing campaigns popping up as companies try to demonstrate their commitment to sustainability. It's a clever pivot, but it's also a way for them to stay relevant in a changing market. The question is, how will this play out in the long term? Will we see genuine shift towards more thoughtful consumption? Or is it just another marketing trend that will fade as soon as economic conditions improve? My bet is that we are seeing a real change in consumer behavior driven by a perfect storm of economical concerns, economic pressures, and sheer exhaustion with hyper consumerism. Some brands will adapt, focusing on quality over quantity, transparency, genuine value. Those that don't, well, they might find themselves on the wrong side of this de-influencing trend. If your industry is affected by this trend, I would, from acknowledgement that this trend, I would start from acknowledgement that this trend exists and it's pushback against overconsumption. And so your strategy needs to shift accordingly. Focus on creating products that last. This might mean fewer product lines, but each one would be rock solid in terms of quality and utility. Remember that in this new landscape, less can indeed be more. This also might require changing your KPIs from units sold to those more reflective of the customer satisfaction and product longevity. It might hurt your bottom line, your revenues, but you would be more stable long term. And just a short note about economic conditions. Even if you assume that this trend would fade once economic conditions improve, then I should say that I don't think that there would be that these conditions would improve fast enough. I think we are in a long period of well, let's say economic stagnation. So you should consider whether you want to rely on that part of the equation. Now let's dive into the retail section of the Trendhunter report. There is a lot to unpack here, but I want to focus on what I believe are the most significant shifts we are seeing. First up, we've got this trend towards what they are calling less is more retail experience. It's not just about minimalism. It's about retailers becoming curators rather than just suppliers. Again, to the notion of customer fatigue. We've been drawing in choices for years now. You walk into this store or hop online and you're bombarded with options. And customer fatigue is indeed settling in. And we are seeing a pushback against that. Consumers are craving for simplicity. And some retailers are starting to catch on already. Take Best Buy Canada, for example. They are partnering with Bell Canada to open 167 small format stores called Best Buy Express. It's not about cramming every gadget known to man into those spaces. It's about offering a carefully selected range of products that actually meet customer needs. Macy's is jumping on this bandwagon as well. They are planning to open around 30 small format stores. And again, it's about curating the experience, not overwhelming the customer. There is also Nordstrom. They're expanding their closer to you strategy, focusing on small format stores tailored to local markets. They are not downsizing per se, they are personalizing. Now, you might be thinking, great, but what does it mean for me? Well, if you are in retail, it's time to take a hard look at your strategy. Are you trying to be everything to everyone? That just might not cut it anymore. Consumers are looking for brands they can trust to filter through the noise for them. But here is where it gets interesting. This trend is not just about physical stores. It's bleeding out into online space as well. We are seeing a rise in curated online marketplaces, subscription boxes, and personalized shopping experiences. It's about reducing choice overload and making the shopping experience feel manageable. As we explored today, the Trendhunter 2025 report highlights several interconnected trends across technology, marketing, and retail. We are seeing a push towards more personalized, efficient, and thoughtful approach in each of these areas. In tech, we are witnessing a continued growth of AI, from personalized computers and wearables to management, and growing focus on privacy and localized computing. This shift is likely to impact how we interact with technology in our daily lives and how businesses approach AI integration. The marketing landscape is evolving with the rise of de-influencing, reflecting broader changes in consumer attitudes. This trend challenges business to rethink their strategies, focusing more on quality, transparency, and genuine value rather than constant consumption. In retail, the move towards curated, less is more experience echoes pretty much the same trends. Retailers are becoming more than just suppliers. They are evolving into trusted curators, helping consumers navigate an overwhelming array of choices. These trends point to a future where technology, marketing, and retail are more aligned with the individual needs and values. And for businesses, adaptability will be key. Those who can offer personalized, efficient, and meaningful experiences while respecting consumer privacy and sustainability concerns are likely to thrive in this landscape. And as we continue to navigate these changes, it's crucial to stay informed and think critically about how these trends might impact our lives and businesses. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. Until next time, and keep looking beyond the fog. This is all for today. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please subscribe, share, like, and join my Telegram channel.